In this section of the course, we're going to talk about some of the tools that Smoke has available for editing and mixing audio in your timeline. We're going to look at first some good tips for getting the audio into your timeline, and then dealing with both audio levels and some audio effects. For this section of the course, I'm going to use another copy of this opening scene XML that we've used before. If you didn't conform this XML scene and reconnect its audio in the earlier lessons on importing media, you'll need to do that before completing these lessons. I'm going to take this opening scene XML. I'm going to right-click and choose Duplicate, and of course the shortcut is always Command-D. And I'm going to rename this to Opening Scene Audio. And I'm going to open that sequence in the timeline. And if you would like, you could also close these other sequences that we're not working on anymore. When the rough cut for this scene was created, all of the audio tracks that were available were included. And what that means is we have several times where the audio that goes with the clips may not be what we want to keep. For example, here in an early part of the scene, before the character gets an incoming video call, the director on set gave her an audible cue that was going to happen.
Ding.
Clearly, we don't want to keep that audio. What we're going to do is get rid of the audio that came with the camera files and replace it with other audio. I'm going to actually close my FX ribbon for just the moment to give myself some more room for these tracks. And what I'm going to scroll down and see is that we have a large number of tracks that came in with those mono tracks that were attached to that camera. When you want to delete tracks, I can actually quickly delete multiple tracks at one time. These tabs on the edge of my tracks serve as track selectors. I'm going to click the first one and then hold down my Command key to click all the tracks that I would like to delete. Whenever you want to delete tracks in your timeline, you just need to grab them and drag them to the bottom of the screen until you see this trash can symbol that we've seen in other lessons. When I let go, those tracks are deleted. I'm now left with just the audio I'd like to keep, the audio from the video chat and the audio from the character who appears in the portal. In order to add in some new audio, we're going to import some audio files. Just a quick reminder, we always import from the Media Hub. I'm going to click on my Media Hub tab, and I'm going to navigate to where I have my files, so navigate to wherever you've been keeping the lesson media. I'm going to use my bookmark that I placed for my desktop, where my footage for videos folder is. I'm going to go into that folder and into this folder called Other Import Files. We have a folder called Audio. Let's import that entire folder. I'm just going to grab that audio folder and I'm going to drop it on top of my footage clip library so that my audio clips become another folder in my footage library. And I'll go back to my timeline. What I'm going to bring in as the sound beneath this scene, instead of what was on the camera, is a sound file that was created as ambient sound for this scene. In my audio folder, I have this clip called Atmos 01. This is just ambient sound, and if I listen to this, it was meant to be the sound that she might have heard while she was in her office. Now I'm going to use this to show you a neat editing trick. This is a great way when you're editing audio into your Smoke timeline to align audio to actions in the timeline. If you have a piece of Foley sound that you're editing into time with an action on screen or a sound effect. In this particular case, what I have is a moment in this ambient sound when we can hear her breathe in and breathe out very deeply. I'm going to match that to a point when we see that happen in the scene. In this ambient sound, it happens at about the 50-second mark. So if I get to that 50-second mark and play forward, I can hear her breathe in and breathe out. And she breathes out just at about that 51-second mark. So right there around 51 seconds, I hear her breathe out. I'm going to leave my playhead there. I know in the past I've warned you on edits that if your playhead is in the clip, it will serve as an implicit endpoint. We're going to use a different edit type this time where placing that playhead is an advantage to us. This clip is a stereo clip, so down in my timeline, I'm going to right-click and add a new stereo audio track. The audio does not automatically patch in, so I'm going to click on my patch here and drag to the left until I see my sources pop up. And then I'm going to find the point in the scene where I see her breathe in and breathe out. It happens around the 6-second mark. So I'm going to bring my playhead back to just before the 6-second mark and play forward. And I see her breathe in and breathe out. And so what I'm going to do is place my playhead where she's breathed in and has not yet breathed out yet. For me, that's at about 6 seconds. That's where I want the sound under the playhead in the source to align with the moment under the playhead in the timeline. I also want this sound to come in and fill the length of the scene. So I'm going to remember that 6-second mark, and I'm going to mark some ins and outs in the timeline. I'm going to hit my home key and hit I to mark an in point, and my N key and hit O to mark an out point. And I'm doing that because I don't want my audio to stretch outside of my scene. And then I'll place my playhead back at that 6-second mark. So the reason I'm lining up these playheads is that the edit type I'm going to use rather than a standard overwrite is what's called an align edit. When you do an align edit, it will pay attention to the ins and outs in the timeline to determine how much material to bring down, but it will then line up the frame where the playhead is in the timeline to the frame where the playhead is in the source and use that to determine how to align the clip in the timeline. So with my ins and outs set and my 2 playheads where I want them to align, I'm going to come to my edit menu, click the drop down and choose aligned edit. My audio fills the ins and outs, but if I come back a little bit before that moment, let's listen to what we get. She sits back in her chair and she breathes in and breathes out at the same time she does visually on the screen. So when you're editing audio into your timeline, take advantage of that align edit to get moments to line up. When you have a sound effect that matches up to a visual moment or anything like that to align audio that was recorded separately to what you're seeing visually on the screen. In the next lesson, we're going to look at some different methods for setting audio levels in the timeline.